Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Ellen Knight, and she had a near-death experience when she was around 6 years old, and you were really sick, weren't you?
I was really sick. I had been really sick since I was born, but it had just gradually gotten worse and worse, where they were having a hard time keeping me alive, let's say.
Okay. You see me doing something here. I'm trying to find the little button to give you full view so we can see you and hear your story. Okay, there you go. So you can start wherever you like and take as long as you want.
Yeah, I had been sick since I was born, and it was a condition that caused super high temperatures up to like 106, 107. So they would put me in tubs of ice to try and get the fevers down. And it was one of these physical things that they didn't know how to fix at that time. So most of the children who had this condition died. And I was very lucky at 6 years old that there was a surgery invented that saved me.
Now this had to do with your kidneys?
It had to do with my kidneys, yeah. It's something called refluxing. And now it's extremely common. It's refluxing from the bladder back up into the kidneys. So it causes really bad kidney infections constantly. And the surgery that they have now fixes it very easily. But from 1960, or let's say 66 and back, they didn't even know what it was. So basically you would just die from the infection, the high fevers, or eventually your kidneys would just stop working. So I was very lucky, just the timing of it in terms of the surgery being invented. But it got to a point where it was so bad. And I do think children know when they're going to die. I knew it was one, I don't know if it's day or night, but it was so bad that I thought, okay, this is it. I don't know how I actually thought that in my mind at 6 years old, the words, but I knew. And then in that moment, literally is when I had the intervention and the near-death experience.
Yeah, I remember right before mine, 1966 at 5 years old. I remember mine right before, like something just kind of told me something major was going to happen.
So yours was in 1966?
Yeah. I was
Oh,
fine.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I drowned.
Oh, and what
I know
part
what you're talking about, huh?
Where were you? What part of the country?
I was Ohio.
Okay. So I wasn't far. I lived outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Because you're in Greece now, correct?
I'm traveling. Yeah, I've been traveling actually for like 5 years.
Okay.
So I've been in Greece since last August.
So yours was in Philadelphia.
I grew up in Philadelphia, yeah, in the main line of Philadelphia, and a beautiful area. And anyway, so yeah, Bryn Mawr Hospital. That's where I was born, and that's where I had the near-death experience. And as you well know, in a year like 1966, or even into like the 90s, nobody really talked about near-death experiences.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's only been like the last 10 years that I even really like mentioned it to a lot of people, or even not that many, because I thought people would think I was crazy or making it up or imagining it.
Yeah, why bother when you know how they're going to respond? I mean, why even let it out?
Yeah, well, that's why I finally decided. I said, it's so much has to do with my life, because when I had the experience, they basically told me what they wanted me to do with my life, and that I had to follow this path.
So what was the first thing you remember? Like, okay, so you know this feeling you're going to die, and then did you leave your body? Was you suddenly somewhere else?
I did leave my body at one point, but the first thing that happened, or I don't know what happened first, but what I remember is seeing 3 figures in white coming to my bed, and 2 of them didn't speak. They were mute, and they kind of floated slightly above the ground. And then one of them was the one who came up, and he bent down and he spoke everything in my ear. And I saw him from above talking to me in my bed. And he just had like a gray beard and must look like a normal guy, except they had white robes on, all 3 of them. And like rope, like a belt that was made of rope. And he proceeded to tell me, basically the first thing he said is, you're going to work for us. And if you agree to do what we ask you to do, you have to agree today, now, then we will let you live. And if not, then, you know, he didn't say you're going to die, but that was the basic thought. So he then, I mean, I don't know how he communicated it to me, you know, was it actually in words, but he told me everything that they wanted me to do. And he also told me what gifts he was going to give me to help me accomplish it. And it was slowly over the years, I would say starting from when I was about 18, that I started to remember it. Because prior to that, I mean, I was so young. I was only 6. So I don't even think consciously I even really knew what was happening. But when I was 18, I started to remember what they told me. And so one of the things he told me was I had to become a jewelry designer and I had to work with Native Americans.
Why do you think that was?
Well, one of the gifts that he gave me, and I'm only now sort of understanding that, they gave me this gift to see into my life. Those were the words. And I didn't realize until really recently that that actually meant not just seeing into my future, because I see things into my future, flashes what I'm supposed to do, but I can also see into certain past lives. So based on some of those past lives, I can understand to some extent why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it was very specific. He said, he told me that I had to design, I don't know how he said it, American Indian, Native American jewelry, and that someday I had to work with Japan, and that I had to become a great creative leader, and that my role was to help the Native Americans through this, you know. And it's a strange thing because I'm not Native American, but I followed it from when I was 18. I made my way, I went to college to become a jewelry designer. I had to figure out where they made Native American jewelry, which was New Mexico. So I would just keep going out to New Mexico and try and get work. I was already trained as a jewelry designer. And everybody thought, like, what is she doing, you know? And it was sort of hard to convince people too, me being Anglo. And, but I just developed it as a specialty. And the whole connection with Japan actually probably won't happen for, it could even be 10 or 15 years from now. So what they do is they show me my path. So they give me these little flashes of, and the reason they gave me this vision, he told me, the guide or whatever, he said, your life is going to be very complicated. And so that you understand why certain things are happening, we're going to give you this vision to see into your life. So it has helped me a lot. And, but it takes a lot of courage to sort of follow this obscure path that is so individual and not really something that all these other people are doing. And, but when you make a commitment like that, which I did, so when he said, we're going to let you live if you agree, and there were other things he told me as well, I agreed, but it wasn't like a white light and really happy. I was actually like very sick, and I wasn't happy. I mean, I agreed to do it, but I said, it sounds like it's really hard, but okay, I'll do it because I want to get out of here. I want to get out of this hospital. So it wasn't all this like feeling of joy in everything in me. It was me knowing that it was a very hard path. And yet this was my chance if I was going to live, that I had to agree to do this. So I've never really deviated from the path because it's when you have a commitment like that, that's.
Do you feel like you were a different child after that?
That is one question that people have asked me, because I know they have something called walk-ins where somebody else can come in. I don't know about that. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I don't really know that. I don't really know the answer to that. The only reason why I don't think so is I think that the family that I was raised in which was, my mom was sort of a strict Irish Catholic disciplinarian. It was probably a good family for me to accomplish what I'm meant to accomplish. So I think it was just, just really changed me. It set a course for me. I mean, they tell me exactly what they want. And at certain points, I can't choose it. They'll show me into a past life. So the last one I saw was when I was in India, which would have been about 2 years ago. And I was just lying in a yoga room at this Ayurveda retreat. And the next thing I know, boom, I was like, it's like being in a movie, it's like a movie. And then I'm in this 3-dimensional space. And I see this man on a horse, huge horse. And he was like in armor. And it was cobblestone streets, and I could actually hear the horse. And it was nighttime, I could see the moonlight. And he was like I don't know if he was a knight or a warrior or something. And so they show me and I've had other ones, multiple ones as a Native American. They show me them so that I can understand more of my character and what I'm capable of based on the lives that I've lived. So they showed me the warrior, I believe, to show me also he was a man with a lot of confidence, and to know that I might have more in me than what I think.
So you feel maybe there's more of a purpose for you than the jewelry? And
I think the jewelry is, I believe specifically that because I'm eventually meant to partner with Japan, that it's about bringing the Japanese structure and way that businesses are managed and bring it into the Native American jewelry world. Because the way it's set up now, the manufacturing of Native American jewelry is, I don't think, very supportive of Native Americans. And it doesn't really help their lifestyles. There's a lot of, dependency issues that are ignored. And so it's really meant to sort of enhance the whole culture, which seems kind of bizarre. Like, why me? Like, I'm, a white girl. I mean, I don't think I have any Native American blood in me, but they picked me, so.
now, did you study like how they originally made this jewelry, or?
Well, I studied to be a jewelry designer in New York, and then at Fashion Institute, and knowing that I had to follow this path of designing contemporary Native American jewelry. I'm not really interested in designing traditional, what's already being done. So I would just get books. There's a great book from the School of American Research in Santa Fe that showed some of the early history of more primitive shapes and things and in the jewelry. And so I just immediately felt incredibly connected to it. And then, I would just travel back and forth because I was in New York. So for many years, I went back and forth between New York and New Mexico. And I had a gallery in New York where I would sell crafts from New Mexico. And then I would design jewelry in New York and New Mexico, both, kind of in both worlds. So in the New Mexico style and in the fashion jewelry. And always keeping in mind sort of this path that they were showing me. So the flashes would just come to me in terms of, it's hard to describe, but it's like a split second or so, and then you just sort of see a glimpse of something. It could even be a potential client. Like, I have projects that I'm working on for future potential clients that they show me that I'm supposed to do this. Like, maybe I wouldn't even do it if I didn't have this vision.
Have you visited the reservations to see how they make this stuff?
Yeah, but most of the time they bring it in to the manufacturers or the buyers. So I worked, though, for years with Native American silversmiths, but not on the reservation, in an operation where they're working in the space I'm designing the jewelry, figuring out the materials, and then working with them to make the initial samples. And that's really, you know, what my destiny is. So for 20 years, I did it for a company that is sort of the premier contemporary American Indian jewelry company, which is a company in Albuquerque called Gertrude Zachary. And I was the designer and really created a lot of forward looks in the market that are still there. And it was extremely hard doing it because it's a bit like playing contemporary jazz. It has to have classic, traditional aspects of it, but then to do it in a new way, it's a hard thing to do. But I really love working with the silversmiths. It's like that's my life.
We were in Sedona a few years ago and we stopped at a roadside rest and they were selling Indian jewelry. And they explained, I don't know if it was true, maybe you could tell me, that there has to be like authentic. There's some kind of like permission they have to get from the government to say it's authentic or something. I don't know.
Well, I think what happens is that there's people who misrepresent whether it's made by Native Americans. Usually there's a stamp with the silversmith, or it could be even the stamp of, let's say, a company like Gertrude, who I worked for, where everything was handmade. But unfortunately, there was a company in the Philippines that was doing it. They were just completely knocking off, copying designs from New Mexico and calling it Native American made. So forget about the fact that they were already copying designs. They were also saying that it was Native American made. And they were shipping it to the United States, to New Mexico, and I think Arizona. And they were, I believe that they were investigated, and there were certain people who went to prison because, if I recollect right, because it certainly has happened. Or sometimes they'll go in and check, like in retail, it's like an arm of the government. I don't even totally know exactly which arm, but they can check and ask, is this Native American made? And if they say yes, and it's not, they can be fined. So it does matter. Yeah.
I remember when I was 16, some, I guess you call them squatters, moved into an abandoned house near us. And they said they had been on Indian reservation. They had some things that they were selling. And my mom bought me a purse. It went through a belt. It had a piece of material and you slid your belt through and it hung. It was a pouch. It was leather and it had beads on it and fringe. It was the most beautiful thing I ever saw.
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
And somebody stole it one night.
Oh.
And I never got it back. And so I've always tried to reproduce and I don't know how, but it was.
Do you have a picture? Do you have a picture of it?
I could probably draw a picture.
Yeah.
But it was a small pouch and it went through my belt on my jeans. And it had a round thing of Indian looking beads.
Right.
It had fringe hanging down and they had beads on the fringe.
Yeah, like probably the tin, or they wrapped the tin.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah. I never forgot it. And
I
I go into a little shop that says they're selling Indian things. I'm always looking to ever find anything like that again. Nothing comes close. So. Yeah,
it's harder in New Mexico for sure to find the beadwork and the leather, but it's around. I'll keep my eyes open because I'm sure it's just a matter of finding somebody who does that. And maybe it wouldn't be exactly the same, but it could be something along those lines.
Like a light tan color. And
that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it flapped like, like a purse would have a flap over. And
and
that's where that round, it was kind of a big round. It was like blues and yellows and red probably, of beads just smashed in this circle. It was gorgeous.
I'll keep my eyes open for sure. I have a lot on my Facebook. I'm connected, especially because I had my own gallery also in New York. So I'm connected to a lot of silversmiths and leather workers, fiber workers who are Native American and doing traditional handwork.
How do you think this comes about with the NDE and these angels?
Yeah.
and then the past lives. How do you think that all connects?
All I know is that I remember him clearly saying, he said, okay, we're going to give you a talent for the jewelry designing in this area that we want you to work. And we're also going to give you a gift to see into your life. So for years, I would get glimpses to the future and I would follow it. And then I don't know how many years ago it was. Maybe it started like 20 years ago, where I saw my first past life vision. And then slowly that has actually gotten stronger, so that the visions that I see are extremely three-dimensional and I can smell and feel everything. But again, it was very much about, I mean, I think people sort of limit what their life is to their current life, when all of us, I believe, and based on what my vision shows me, is we all have multiple lives. So we're a combination of all of them. And so they show me basically along the way the different lives that I've led and why that is why I'm where I am. So as the warrior, the knight, in one I was a painter in Italy, a man. In another I was a medicine man. And another I was a Native American. They only showed me as a boy, like a runner, where he would run around the mountain. And another Native American life where I had a mohawk, and one where I was like in Ireland or somewhere and I was a maid. And anyway, there's a few others, but it kind of all gets interwoven. Like I have dealt with certain health issues, and I know when I saw the medicine man, they were able to tell me that he was having problems because he couldn't solve certain health issues with his people. And I knew that that had to do with the health issues that I have and that I need to help solve them. And so it's, I don't know, it's this, you know, it's like the Leonard Cohen movie, I'm Your Man. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's my favorite movie. It's amazing. It's a documentary.
What's it called?
It's called I'm Your Man. It's a documentary about Leonard Cohen, the musician. But at one point he talks about, you know, he's kind of talking about people's purpose. And he kind of alludes to the fact that there's a bigger masterpiece. I mean, we're moving parts of it, but we're only pieces, right? So you don't even always know. Yes, I know the job I'm supposed to have. I know I'm supposed to deal with this certain health issue. I know certain things in my family, but I'm still part of a much bigger, shall we say, masterpiece. And we don't know that, what that really is or what it ultimately will become. So I just try, despite sometimes it being very difficult, to stick to what my path is. And I would love to have more visions into past lives. I just can't control it. I mean, one of the ones that I had was I was getting acupuncture. He put one in my ear, and the next thing I know, it was like, boom, I was in like this swampy area. And a lot of times they only show me the back of the person. He had a mohawk, this back of him, and he was in like a canoe type boat, little canoe. And I could feel and hear the wind. I could smell the sort of swampy area, and it was amazing. I was completely three-dimensional. It was like a window opens, like a world opens, and I can see into it. And it never leaves me. Once it's there, once that window has been open, I can see it. And I have had people say to me, oh, okay, it's your imagination. Well, I use my imagination for a living. I mean, I get paid to use my imagination, and I can't use my imagination that way. I mean, I can envision jewelry or something else that I'm designing, but I can't see a whole world in 3D like I can when they open up this portal, whatever it is. So I really grew to understand that the last year, that it was that what our life is, because he said, you're going to see into your life. It's all our lives. We're a combination of all our lives. That's why doing good in your life, if you're given a lot, is important.
That's how I remembered my 5-year-old drowning was it was after my second NDE at 25, I was sitting out in the grass of the night sky one night and just let go of a lot of issues and just got lost in the stars. And all of a sudden, it was like this big movie theater, not movie theater, movie screen, like the outdoor theater screens.
Mm-hmm.
Drive-in screen is what I'm trying to say. It's like it just opened up in the night sky. But I was not just watching it, I became immersed in it too.
Right.
And it just took me over. And when
It's like you're in the world. It gives me goosebumps.
yeah, and I just watched the whole drowning from front to back. And when it was over, I like it let go of me, like sat back. Did I drown when I was little? I mean, I said this to myself so loud. And so the next day I went and asked my mom, did I drown when I was little? And she said, yeah, you did.
Wow.
And I knew because I seen the whole drowning that who was there. You know, I knew I could look down and see my mom and sister come later. First, me and my brother went down. And I could see everything that happened, but I didn't see the rescue, how they found me. And so I said, I got two questions. Did I drown when I was little? And how did you find me? That's at that time. That's all I wanted to know. And so I went to my sister's house and did I drown when I was little? I asked her the same questions. I went to my brothers and they all said, yeah. And my mom explained to me later why it was a secret. It was never to be talked about because their firstborn child died. I was their sixth at 9 months old, and my dad's family blamed her. And here I am dead. My brother's carrying my dead, drowned body over his shoulder back to the house. And she's thinking, you know, everybody's going to blame her. And so it was a secret. They were all to keep it quiet. So of course I couldn't say anything, but it was about a week later, we went to a lake to go fishing with the family of 5 kids, my mom and dad. And it all started coming back to me then, you know, then I forgot about it for years, you know, but I can remember times I remembered it right after it happened. Did you remember it? Can you remember anything like that right after yours? Like
I didn't really start. If I did, I wasn't conscious of it. I did start to have, and when I was 16, I had, I guess what are called premonition dreams. I had one before my very good friend was murdered, or I kind of saw certain things. And then when I was 18, or right before 18, so 17, that's when I started to know about the jewelry, that I was supposed to do jewelry, and found my way to the school. And that's when the vision started to become clear of what I was supposed to do and kind of why I was supposed to do it. But it's taken over the years for me to understand a lot of it. And to, like you said, to kind of know what happened, you know. And you're 6 years old, and plus the fact that people didn't talk about it. I mean, it wasn't like I could have sat down with my mom and said, you know, these angels came to my bed last night. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how she would have responded, but probably not.
because no other kids do that. We never hear it. We never hear anybody talk like that. So we can't talk like that.
No, and we were, you know, I was raised very Catholic, which is fairly conservative. And even then, as I got older and started to know that I was having these visions to see into my future, and when I really knew, let's say by a certain point, that I had had this near-death experience, which maybe I really knew, let's say in my 20s, I really didn't talk to very, very few people about it. I mean, almost like a handful around me that I talked about it, because they were like, well, why are you going to New Mexico? You know, why are you trying to do Native American, you know, work with Native Americans? I'm like, well, I have a vision. Well, I've been told that that's what I'm supposed to do. Oh, okay. You know, this wasn't like, as you well know, it's only been like the last really 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, there was a movie, I don't know how long ago it was, about 10 years ago, about a little boy who had a near-death experience.
Heaven is for real?
Yeah, where Jesus, where he has a visit. Yeah. So that sort of opened doors, and Shirley MacLaine has helped a lot in her writing, which is amazing, talking about things. And so that's opened up conversations. And so
I remember when I first started hearing her talk years ago, I was really put off by it. This is before I, you know, knew the words NDE and what my experiences were. It was just hearing what she was saying. It sounded anti-Christian to me. It sounded like borderline it was like I was afraid of those things because I grew up, my grandma telling me, that stuff's witchcraft and it's the devil. And
that's
so
really,
there was a lot of resistance, not just what people will think, but what I felt was right and wrong.
Wow, that's a lot to come back from. My resistance, I would say, up until the last few years, which is really almost 2 years ago, was the first time I wrote about it on Facebook in a group, was I felt it would affect me professionally. I felt that people would think, oh, she's, a little crazy or this or that. And I just got to a point where I thought, I don't care. I mean, if that's what you're going to think, that's what you're going to think. And it doesn't matter to me anymore. I know I'm talented. I work hard.
Did they think you were using this to sell your jewelry?
I always felt it was the opposite. Oh. I always felt that people would look negatively on it because, you have to be pretty smart to succeed in anything in the fashion industry, particularly in the creative field. And so it was a very tough industry. So I always perceived that people would think worse of me, not better, ever. I never thought that it would enhance me in any way in my profession.
Yeah, no me neither.
Yeah. That's why I was afraid to talk about it. I mean, when I really knew, because as I said, the vision has gotten stronger and I've understood more and more. And it was just really like I was in Buenos Aires, I was in lockdown during COVID. And I just thought, you know what? I don't really care anymore if that's what people think. If they have a negative idea about me because of it, or what my journey is supposed to be, well, that's really their problem.
Isn't that a breakthrough? I mean, I think of a baby chick breaking out of the eggshell in them moments where like, you know what, I'm taking off these chains of what I'm worried about everybody else thinks and forget what I know. And to break out of that is so free.
Well, especially like you and like me, where it's so much a big part of who you are. And I don't know if it's always like that for everybody. But for me, it's really a constant communication in terms of the visions, because they decide what I'm going to see. I don't decide.
Right.
Somebody else decides, right? So that means that they're always there. And how can I live my life and not talk about something that's so much a part of how I function? And
it's like, how would we make this up if we don't control it?
Yeah,
it just is spontaneous and takes us
totally spontaneous.
Out of the blue.
And definitely can't control. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a way to control it more. I mean, I've always wanted to see less, because I see a lot of visions, people close to me. And I remember I was working with a shaman in Peru, and I said, do you think I could see a little less? Do you think we could tone down the gift a little so I don't have so much vision into my future? And because that's the harder part to see. And he said, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. So that was clear.
I remember a few times a voice would come to me, because I'm the type person, I feel guilty for things I shouldn't feel guilty for. I take on all kinds of responsibility. And a few times a clear voice had come in over the last years. I've been a long time, but because I think I finally got it, is the only thing I was doing wrong was not believing in myself. That was the only thing I was doing wrong, was not trusting myself.
Right.
And I thought, that is it.
Yeah,
I'm listening to everybody else, their lies and their stupidness, and not what I know to be true.
Yeah, because what else do you really have? I mean, there's a reason. We all have a purpose, right? And so for whatever reason, there's those of us who are, sort of, I don't know what you would call it, the sensitives or whatever. I mean, it's just the way it is, So we're just meant to operate sometimes on that level. Not all the time, because you still have to function, right? So that's why, for me, like exercise is really important. Things to keep me more grounded, because my energy can be super high and sort of, spiritual,
like
creative.
If you don't have a ball and chain on you, then you're just going to fly off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been traveling for 5 years. I mean, I basically left my home and have been living in different countries. So, I mean, on my own, that's pretty like
You don't have a
free-spirited.
partner or any family with you? You're like on your
No,
own.
I mean, people have come along the way, like here, or my friend is here and a few other friends, and we're traveling, but it's basically my journey. And they
Wow.
showed me that I was supposed to do it. I didn't realize it was going to be so long. I
Did
thought,
you-
because you can't see time in the vision, right?
Uh-huh.
You don't see any time. So I knew I was supposed to go and leave my house and start traveling.
You're
So I
like
thought it
free
was gonna be-
bird.
yeah, and different reasons for it, health reasons, creative reasons, but they showed me. So, and I thought, oh, okay, it'll be like 3 months or 6 months.
Have you
Now
ever
it's like-
had that, the family, the husband, the kids, the house, I mean, where that you've always been free like this?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is I worked really hard and I take care of my sister, or at this point manage her care, who has autism and epilepsy. And she's sort of like my kid, to be honest.
I have a disabled sister. I know what you're talking about. She's been always
Yeah.
my kid too, even though she's my oldest sister.
Yeah, and Cynthia is my younger sister. And I kind of always knew that I was probably going to take care of her. And it's taken so much, like a huge amount of effort and years that I don't even think I
Does she
could
go
have
with
had.
you, or is she at a facility?
No, she's luckily not in a facility, because in New Mexico, I was able to get her funded through a self-directed program. So she lives with her caretakers.
Okay.
But the big battle, which is one of the things I'm meant to do in my life, and it's a big part of my life, is understanding what autism really is, and being kind of on the forefront of that. And I've had to fight doctors for a long time for her to literally save her life. And finally, the medical community, there's a few forward doctors that are now in alignment with what I knew all along. But between that battle, which has been like many, many years, and my work, I just didn't really want to have kids. So I always thought, why get married if I don't want to have kids? I already have a kid. My sister, who's like having 5 kids. Now it's better because she lives with her caretakers. But that took me a long time to get her into a good situation. And it was brutal.
Was there a point, I mean, I know we're off topic, but I have a sister in the same situation, but not autism, but mental health and developmental disability. But is there a point where like your parents were caretakers and then you took over?
Well, what happened is my father, because there is some mental health issues in the family, which I think is all neurological and autistic, but it's just in that age, like if you're over, let's say 45 or 50 years old, you would never have been diagnosed with autism. So my siblings were never diagnosed. And so when she started to have real problems, because really autism is neurological, my family didn't know how to deal with it. So they did the same thing they did with my other sister, which is put her in a mental hospital. And I had a vision that was not who she was, that there was something else. And so they showed me that I would eventually be successful at getting her properly diagnosed and on the right medication so that she could have a good life. I have gotten her properly diagnosed. She doesn't have seizures, but even after all these years, which I don't even know how many it is now, 12, 15, we still haven't gotten her on the right combination of medication. It's very hard with seizure medicine with somebody who has autism. So that's been one of the battles that they have shown me the path, and it has been an extremely tough battle. But that's just part of my path. So when my father put my sister in the mental health program, I just went and took her out. I just fought the doctors, and I brought her out to New Mexico. And it was very hard to get her diagnosed with autism because she was older. I mean, if you go and all that mental illness of people 45 and older, I think the majority of it's autism or neurological. So I couldn't save my other sister, but I could save Cynthia.
So you had
So-
2 sisters with autism?
I have my one sister, my other sister is in the mental hospital. I 100% believe she has autism. It would be very difficult for me to get that formal diagnosis now, because first of all, she's on so much medication, as they do in these facilities. And secondly, I mean, yes, at the forefront of autism, particularly it's a place called Cortica Care, Dr. Suzanne Go. She's really the first neurologist to know how to diagnose from a neurological standpoint autism. But that's a tough thing to get done. She's probably the only facility in the country that's doing it. So then what it becomes is more a symptomatic, diagnosis. And that was really hard for me to do with my sister, because once they're labeled mentally ill by the psychiatric community, it's a huge battle to get them to see it for what it is, which is a developmental disability, and developmental disabilities are neurological. So we've gone through many, many battles in hospitals and with doctors. And
I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, there were many years I would wake up every morning terrified that she had died during the night, because I knew she had epilepsy. But the neurological aspects of autism show up in a form that's called atypical. So it's very hard for the doctors to understand that it could be a certain type of seizure, because it shows up differently. Like rage attacks, all that are in autism and developmental disabilities, well, that's part of epilepsy, but getting a neurologist, there's very few neurologists. It's like 10 times more psychiatrists. And I just refuse to give up. I mean, I have really fought hard. So now it's just trying to get her on the right program, medicine. But that vision, I remember exactly the day that they showed me a vision. She does not have mental illness. She's not schizophrenic. That is not what she is. I had no idea what it was. And so that put me on the journey.
I call those knowings. I get these knowings, like where I'm trying to help my sister, or whether I used to work in social work or whatever. I just get these knowings. I know everything you all experts, whoever, are saying is not correct. I can see so clearly what this problem is, and the problem, and then try to get people to listen to you.
That's especially doctors, and especially in the field of neurology, and especially in the field of autism and developmental disabilities, because they're only just figuring out that it's neurological. It's always been behavioral, which, what does that mean? Yeah. I mean, people don't just misbehave,
And I wonder how much of the gifts we have are to help our sisters. Because if we look back at our life and we're given this gift, and who has benefited from the most? I know my sister has.
Oh, I think it's absolutely to open up. I know that I know from doctors that I fought who eventually understood what was happening. I know I've saved lives, but it also has to do with, because they show me my future life. They only show me a quick, like a second, 2 seconds. And I know that I'm meant to work in neurology. But so, I mean, I fight a lot of people. I mean, it's not even just doctors. It's a lot of people who want to believe it's behavioral, but this is without a doubt, because they only show me the visions if it's part of what my role is in terms of enhancing our world. So, let's say I'm going to have a party. They might probably not show me any vision about that. I mean, it's not important.
Right.
They're going to show me the future or the past when it's an important part, or it's part of what I agreed to, so there are just times when it's hard, because it's multiple things that are difficult. That's why I knew, even at 6 years old, when he spoke in my ear, he told me everything. And I was 6 years old and I knew it was going to be really hard. I mean, that's a lot for a 6-year-old to understand.
I'm sorry, what?
I knew at 6 years old that it was going to be really hard, what they were telling me to do. And that's a lot for a 6-year-old to understand. Yeah. That's why when I agreed, I didn't want to agree to have a life that hard. I didn't want to have the battles or have to do what I've had to do. But it was either that or they weren't going to let me live.
Yeah, and see, I've never heard that before, but there's things about everybody's story too. There's always a part that we've never heard before that is unique for them.
Yeah, and that was, honestly, those were the first words. We're going to let you live, but you're going to work for us. And you have to agree to do what I'm going to tell you now. And so I had to wait, till he told me everything. And then I had to agree. And I remember, I can see myself. Okay, I'll do it. Sounds really hard, but I'll do it. Just get me out of here. Because I had spent so much time in hospitals as a kid.
It just makes me wonder if, because I had part of my NDE at 5 years old too involved an angel. And it makes me wonder if we've had an encounter with an angel on the other side, if we are a smidgen part after that, a guardian angel ourselves. It just feels that way from the conversation we're sitting here and having and looking back at our lives and how things progressed and ended up turning out. We're almost like guardian angels for our sisters.
Definitely. Well, I know I am, and it sounds like you are. My sister would have died. There's no doubt about it if I hadn't fought really hard. Or God knows, on the street. I mean, it would have been something really horrible. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's like a guardian angel in a physical form. I mean, I would give my life for my sister. If God came to me today and said, okay, you give up your life and we will end Cynthia's suffering. I might ask for one more day, but beyond that, I would be like, I would do it in a second. I mean, she's like my baby and she's suffered so much and she's such a kind, sweet soul. So
see, I look at it differently. I feel like, because my sister has end-stage kidney renal disease. And and when we get done here, I'm going to the nursing home to meet with the hospice team and stuff. But like her nursing home is just like 10 minutes away where I put her this last time. But I forget where I was going with that.
Well, what your role is with her as sort of a guardian angel.
Yeah, I just forget where I was going. Actually, it just said poof.
It's the
I know what I was going to say. As I feel differently, I feel like she's had such a hard life that I can only imagine, like the song says, I can only imagine, how free she's going to be and how beautiful and healthy and wonderful she's going to be when she goes to heaven. And I don't want to be, without my sister. I'm going to miss her. But that is something that I've always had this imagination, how wonderful that's like. That's something that's going to make her life better is when she goes to the other side.
Right.
Because she's such an angelic person.
Yeah.
And she doesn't see where her life is hard. Like she don't compare her life to anybody else's and says, why isn't mine like that? Because she can't think like that.
Yeah.
Another way she's really intelligent is strange. And other times most of the time she's like this little child. And then she'll have these moments like she'll kind of correct me sometimes, like morally.
And why is she a child? Why is she childlike? Because she's so sick?
She has the strangest diagnosis. She don't fit in any box. She has schizophrenia. And so when we go to the hospital for anything, that's all they see. She's crazy. We don't listen to nothing she says. And I'm like, oh, no. And so I know her. I've known her since the day I was born because she's my oldest sister, right? And so I know her. And so I have to be like, you are an advocate for her and get people to see the real situation, not what their papers say. But her diagnosis is so strange. Like they just called me the other day and they's like, is she still developmentally is she developmentally disabled? I'm like, you're asking me? Before I got her out of the nursing home, I wanted her to go to a group home because she's been in these nursing homes for way too long. She's just laying there. I got her in a group home where they put her in an MRDD home, a mental retardation. She's not mentally retarded.
Plus but that's what they put her in. Have it or call it that anymore.
And so she got that diagnosis. And so they wanted to keep her in state homes after that and never let her out. And I had to be her advocate and fight and become her guardian. And so now they call and it's like, is she developmentally disabled? I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking, that's what they told me. I said, but she's not MRDD. And I'm thinking, does that mean all these people's noses are back in her business? She's in hospice, people, because it means a whole bunch of state problems. when you get certain diagnosis, where they want to step in.
Although there's advantages to it, because most of the states now, their funding is going to developmental disabilities, not to mental illness, because
Right.
the children are being diagnosed with developmental
And I
disabilities.
thought that when she went to these group homes, this will keep her out of the group homes. It'll give her extra protection of her rights. But then they put her in she didn't function well at home because she's been institutionalized for decades.
Right.
And so we needed to look at another placement. And oh, Peggy, put her at this wonderful place. It's out in the country and it's with some other people, because the other place she was in, there was a man there that would threaten to hit her, and he did hit her once. She was afraid to go there. So we put her there. And I was like, what is this, Hotel California? Once you come, you can never leave, because we found out it was not what they said it was. There was only 3 other residents, and they were so severely mentally retarded, they didn't even get out of bed. They couldn't speak or communicate. And she's in this place. And the woman that was running it was a nightmare. I mean, lied about my sister and lied about the nursing home she was in before. And she was just one lie. And they were putting all her food in a blender, and she's having to eat her food like that. And she don't have teeth, but she eats everything, where it's so
Are you
hard.
still in Ohio? Is that the state you're?
Yeah.
Because
so,
each states are better than others for these.
I was working on the pipeline with my husband, and on my every break, and even not when I was supposed to be, when I was supposed to be working, I was on the phone with all people from the state trying to get my sister out of that. And they said, oh no, this is a state home. She'll never leave. And she'd only been there a couple of weeks. And I fought and fought, and they said, I want her back in this nursing home, this one close to me. And because my mom was there, and it'd be good for everybody. And I had to fight them, and I won. But man, another lady at the nursing home, she had a daughter in a place like that, and she could never get her out. She died there.
That's terrible.
And so, yeah, I mean, people that don't have a family member with these problems don't understand what advocate you have to be.
Yeah, maybe Ohio doesn't have the self-directed programs. I think there's 15 states that have that. So in essence, you get a budget to hire your own caretakers and manage everything yourself. So I have caretakers who in essence work for me, or, the budget. And so instead of her being institutionalized, we can manage it that way. And those kind of programs are becoming more and more and more popular, because in the end, they're actually less expensive for the state. Families are happier. Caretakers who love to be caretakers, because they're sort of born to be caretakers, love that work. And so either you have the family member in your home and the caretakers come, or the situation I found was that, she lives with the caretaker. It's a mother and daughter, and then they have a cousin too. So they all caretake my sister.
Yeah, my sister doesn't work well in a home environment. She needs that structure of a nursing home.
She needs that. Yeah.
It's like somebody's been in prison their whole life. They get out and they can't function because they've been institutionalized. And they told me that she wouldn't make it. And I was, oh yes, she will. And so we tried it twice.
It's you being a guardian angel in a physical form. Right? Because it wouldn't work otherwise if you weren't in a physical form.
Yeah.
And I just think there are just some people who, for whatever reason, are working for the angels. I don't know if that means that we're angels, and I don't know if it's good or bad that we have these roles. I don't even think you can even judge it that way, but it's just for some reason there's people that are chosen to do that. And I know that I was, and people misinterpret me. Like they see me as something completely different than I feel like who I am and what my purpose is. But I can't, what am I going to do?
Do you feel like you can identify other, I don't want to say we're guardian angels, but whatever that word is.
Yeah.
Earth angels. And and we can't even say that. That sounds egotistical because we're humans, with problems, but I can identify other people, like might be at the hospital, or people in the emergency squad.
Oh, wow.
There's just been times where I'm like, that is an angel.
Well, I believe that you then have a special talent for seeing that, because I don't see that. I do not have that sensitivity. And I think these kind of gifts, like let's say that, or seeing into past lives, or whatever these things are very specific. I think it's like an artist. you're not like, if you're a jazz musician, you're a jazz musician. I mean, it's a specific talent. And I think spiritual gifts are very specific as well. I do not have the ability to see like that. I can after I talk to somebody and they can tell me about experiences maybe that are similar, but I would not be able to pick that up.
I can pick out on evil people too.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody else, like, they don't see a problem. Like, can you not see? Wait. But then I pick up, like, somebody, I think, oh my God, are you an angel? Like, I can pick up on that goodness. It's just like black and white.
That's great. Then you can try and keep people around you who are, because when you're so sensitive, you get very influenced by energy around you. And it's hard to kind of block that. That's what I've been told by the shaman and other healers, is that I'll absorb people's energy. So I have to be really careful. If I can, I mean, obviously in a work situation, you can't pick and choose, but in other situations, I can choose who I'm going to have around energetically. I
think mine started during the drowning because I felt people's emotions. I didn't hear their conversation. It's like my drowning was all out of body. It wasn't the heaven experience like I had at 25, but it was all out of body. I was this ghost kid. And I, right before I completely drowned, as I was underwater struggling, I thought about my mom and my sister at the kitchen, and not the kitchen. I thought about them at the house. Like, why aren't they here already? My mom says, you and your brother go ahead on down the pond. Me and your sister be down in a little bit. So as I'm drowning, I'm thinking, where are they? I'm under this water. And all of a sudden I'm at the ceiling, like you looking down. Looking down. But I was looking down at my mom, my sister, getting things out of the cabinet to bring down, like for a little picnic down the
wow. So you traveled.
Yeah, but I didn't hear what they were saying. I felt their emotions. I felt that concentration, and I just felt that inside of them. And then later, I was back hovering over the pond when I completed the drowning. It hurt really bad, and then I woke up, and just had the experience, hovered above the pond. And then later I looked down, and my mom and sister are now sitting on a bed sheet. Like, I didn't see them walking down and setting things out because I was doing other things. But then I looked down later and I see they're now on the bed sheet, and I'm thinking they don't even know I drowned. And there again, I felt their conversation. I didn't hear what they were saying. I felt that intimate, female, close conversation. And I didn't realize till I got old that that's been my whole life. I feel everybody around me. And I think that's why I couldn't focus.
Can you feel when you're talking through Zoom with people?
Yes.
I hope you feel good energy from me.
I do.
Oh, good.
It takes me a while, when it starts. It takes me a while. I don't know them. I'm not sure. Feeling things out. But then, like right now, we're in a flow.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're on a screen. It's not like, even if more than what we would be if we're actually sitting across the table from each other. There's no barrier.
Well, I really am thankful because it's really nice for me to have somebody who kind of is understanding of it, because I've never really had people around me. I mean, I've eventually told people, but I've never really had, maybe a few people have had something happen, but never to the magnitude of what mine is. So I've never really had anybody who really understood it and then was like, oh, okay, yeah, I had something, similar or along those lines. I mean, I have not had that. So for me, it's very healing to be able to have somebody say, oh, wow, yeah, okay, that's, even though, let's say mine is different than yours, there's still similarities in it.
Yeah, it was 1966. We both encountered angels.
Yes.
And even though what you were told was very different than what I got was something let me know my family didn't love me. And I've had people say, oh, they would never be told that. Like, well, I was. And it's true. I mean, I can tell you to this day, and my family will admit they never liked me. But at 5 years old, I didn't know that. I knew my older siblings thought I was a little pain in the butt. I was a little spoiled brat. But I thought my mom loved me. And I know today she's not capable of it. But, and I accept that now. But at that time, I didn't know that at 5 years old. But something told me as I'm hovering above the pond, my family didn't love me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And then a voice inside my head was saying, God sends children here to be loved. That's why he sends them here. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not fair. Because I remember this as 5 years old, and I was just like, that's not fair. You just tell me my family don't love me. And then you say, that's why God sends children here to be loved and I'm not loved. And so what happened was I grew this strong sense of injustice. Like when I see wrong, I got to make it right. And from that day on, I have always been that way.
A love warrior.
Yes. It's just like, if I see somebody getting beat up and everybody's sitting around laughing, I'll be the one jumping in and stop it, and telling the teacher, or, I'm always little Miss Police or little Miss Social Worker. And it was just my personality, but I never saw it as a good thing because there's always repercussions for tattling.
Yeah.
It's never good. I became as a teenager, I wasn't like that anymore. I was in this dark place, I was just suicidal, mad at the world.
So many teenagers.
I wasn't told on anything, which is a bad thing too. Somebody tries to rape you and you don't tell because you get into this mindset. It's not cool to tell. I finally learned that, and it was a bad timing to learn that. But we live and learn. But I know, and I can see where you were given what you were given, and then like since 1966. I don't know what month mine was, but I just know it was summer. So I don't know what time.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, because I was alone, and I had been in the hospital for a long time, so I don't know what time of year it was. But I said this in another discussion I had with John, where you saw my video. It still feels like it's yesterday. I mean, that's how clearly I can see him talking to me and telling me what they wanted me to do and what I had to agree to. And I remember so clearly how I felt, which was, I'll do it. I don't really want to do it, but I'll do it because I want to get out of here. So I'll agree. And I would never not do what they asked me to do. There would be that's why I've stuck through all these years with my sister. I would never give up. And I would never give up on the work that I do and the other things that I'm meant to work on, because.
And, we all say, most of us are NDEs, like say I was at the ceiling looking down, like I was hovering at the pond looking down. And with you looked down and you saw this angel talking to you, your body.
Bending down to my ear, right into my ear.
Yeah. But you saw it through your spiritual eyes, because you didn't see it through looking up, like through your body. You saw it from a different way.
And I only just realized that, actually, because I was talking to somebody about it, because I never even realized I came out of my body. And I said, I was able to see him talking to me. And she was like, well, how could you see him talking to you? I mean, I said, I could see him from above talking to me. She said, well, how could you see him from above talking to you if you're laying down in your hospital bed? I said, oh, you're right. How could I? Because I didn't even really think about it.
Yeah, and we see it the same. The memory, we see it the same every single time. It's never altered. And
it's never what?
It's never altered.
And so never altered. Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing a few years back, is I started thinking, wait a minute, I'm seeing, of course I see it the same every single time, but wait a minute, I am like my second NDE. At first I saw my things, I was this invisible orb in the bright white light. And then I was like, wait a minute, I see it the same way every time. Then I see myself across the room. Say if I'm like a center of a clock at noon, I see myself, a physical me across the room. And then later I see a physical me. Now that one disappeared. Then I see a physical me from behind, but I'm this point of reference all the time. And I see Jesus from behind, and then I join him, and then we dip down on earth and we see if I didn't return, what my son's life would be like. And then I'm back, And then I am whole. I am a whole me because I see my hands go up from my face as I'm crying out in front of God and Jesus. And I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I'm back in the wheelchair. But, you know, for so long, I just told my story and blurted it out. And it sounds so crazy. I'm focused more about what's people thinking of me. What am I looking like and sounding like when I tell this? And not thinking about, wait a minute. Let's look deeper into this. What point of reference was I? And there was like several me's, like, I don't know, is that word hologram? I don't know.
So
Like,
cool.
where you can see from, you know, this, like you saw your body from below.
Three-dimensional. Yeah.
And it's like, once we have those spiritual eyes and those spiritual ears, I think we come back with those that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
Somebody's coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. My friend is coming in. We're actually going to dinner tonight to a Japanese restaurant. It's a very famous Japanese restaurant called Nobu. He has them in different cities around the world. And he's there. The chef is going to be there tonight. Nobu.
Oh, that'd be
himself.
awesome.
Yeah, it's very. He's like one of the biggest celebrity chefs in the world.
Cool.
I mean, and he's Japanese, so of course for me that's like, because I'm going to live in Japan someday.
That's
so
so funny. Yeah.
That's very exciting.
I don't want to keep you because I could just go on and on all day.
You're so sweet.
And it's so nice to connect with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'll have this ready later today and I'll send it to your email.
Okay.
Okay. You have a wonderful evening.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, I'll talk to you soon.